say 508?
That's what they told me.
508.
That's what they said.
Don't go there at 509.
I was told 508, and I'm very punctual.
Why speak at this event? Like, is it just a big audience, or is there anything about the theme?
No, I honestly, and I've spoken at literally hundreds of events in the last 6 years, and this is in a way one of the ones I'm most excited about because, my whole story is that I walked away from the Democratic Party 6.5 years ago, and I started a movement called WalkAway. Hundreds of thousands of people have joined the movement to share their WalkAway stories. But WalkAway was never like specifically a pro-Republican or pro-Trump movement. It's a pro-truth movement. We encourage people to think for themselves, do their own homework, do their own research. So an event like this where you've got people outside of just MAGA, which, I am now. I ended up finding my way over to the MAGA movement. But I love working with people across the political spectrum and kind of showing that we can have diverse, we don't have to agree on everything, but we can be civil with one another and not be trying to destroy each other and not be trying to use lawfare and, various mechanisms to try to create so much division and chaos.
How's it going? It just doesn't seem like I was interviewing Deepak just before this, and I asked him, like, if you could change one thing in the US right now, he said he'd want people to become more curious. What he meant by this is become less absolutist. Like, the left think they know it all, the right seem they know it all, and like, it's a bit obvious they don't know it all when there's half the population that completely disagrees with them. So then how do you bridge that gap? RFK says that the social media algorithms make it even worse, is that they feed you the information that feeds your whole confirmation bias. But how do you change that? Because it's not heading in the right direction.
Yeah, well, and you're right about that. The whole social media problem is kind of like a secondary thing that's happening, but the primary problem is the news media. And I think if we could expose the news media for exactly what they are, which is basically endless state propaganda, and mostly for the Democrat Party, this has been going on for a long time, like 90% of the media or more are leftist. And it's becoming more and more extreme, far leftist. So many people are misinformed, and I think if we can create a campaign which wakes people up to the reality that they're being lied to and manipulated by the media, if we can just so I'm agreeing with you, if we can get people more curious and doing more exploration of what the actual truth is, then people will see for themselves, what's really going on.
Why is the media mainly left-leaning? Obviously, some people on the left, it's hard to disagree with that. I think the fact social media and mainstream media is more left-leaning is something that both sides would agree on. Now, obviously, the left think they have their own explanations on why that is. How would you explain it? Why are journalists mainly left-leaning?
Well, it's a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, it's been a slow infiltration that's been going on. This didn't just happen like overnight. This has been going on for decades. It's just been getting worse and worse and worse. And people, I think, did not realize until it was too late, like the frog in the boiling water. All of a sudden, people are like, oh my God, we're being boiled alive. But it's like, this has been going on for a while. Number two, so many young people are going to universities and they're being indoctrinated while they're in college, and they're being indoctrinated with very far left ideology. And by the time they get out of school, they've got all these ideas in their head, and they're entering into the workforce, whatever profession they're entering into, feeling like they have this sort of like leftist activist mindset, and they're bringing that even into the world of journalism. I mean, years ago we used to say, these aren't reporters, these are activists, but it's even much, much worse now. I mean, I personally lived through a brutal Democrat lawfare situation in which they brought the Department of Justice against me, they brought the civil lawfare against me.
How'd it go? What was the outcome?
Well, I went to jail. And
how long?
I was in jail for 2.5 days, but then I had to go through a criminal case that took over a year. And after spending 2.5 days in jail, then I spent 3 months on house arrest, and I'm still on federal probation.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, until January. It'll be 4 years by the time this is over.
And that's done in January, finally.
Over a Class B misdemeanor, which I think most people who paid attention to the details of my case don't believe I should have ever even been charged with a crime. I pled guilty because I didn't want to go before a D.C. judge and a D.C. jury, but most people who are familiar with the details of my case believe that I did not do what I was accused of doing, even though I pled guilty. My point is, as I went through this, it would have been very, very nice to have a news media in this country that was actually paying attention to the details of my case and what I was being accused of by the Department of Justice. There was a time when the media, their job was to hold power accountable and to speak truth to power so
now
that
they hold power.
Now they're enabling the government to brutalize innocent civilians. they're actually a propaganda arm of the government. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, this is a huge, huge problem. But, you've got young people going to college and they're being told by Marxist professors that this is a systemically racist country, that America is filled with bigots. And then they get out of college and feel like it's their job to destroy the bigots and the racists who never really existed in the first place.
So, I think, would you say that in the last few years, even a few months and years, do you think it's getting better or worse? Because on one side, obviously, social media companies are still censoring, but Elon owns X. That's changed.
Right.
Rumble's gaining traction. The trust in mainstream media is eroding every year. And mainstream media is gaining a lot of traction. So would you say that the world, at least the US, is heading in that right direction?
Well, so I think two things are happening at the same time. I think some things are improving, like what you're saying, Elon taking over Twitter. I think that a lot more people are waking up to what's going on. They're speaking out. More and more people are getting involved. These are all good things. These are all improvements. On the other hand, the people who are causing the problems, which is, in my opinion, the left, are getting worse. And, 6 years ago, we didn't see this type of lawfare or this, and them cheering on, destroying people's lives. A lot of people don't, because I went through January 6th, I know a lot about it. It's the weirdest situation. I guess I'm a J6er, but I didn't go inside the Capitol on January 6th. I didn't commit any violence. But having been dragged into it, 5 people have committed suicide because of what the left is doing to them in these January 6th misdemeanor cases. I'm sorry to keep bringing it back to that.
I understand.
But the point is, this is how much, and they're cheering this on. They're not backing down. They're not saying, maybe we've gone too far. Maybe we should pull back. People shouldn't be killing themselves over misdemeanor charges. But they're continuing to round people up. They're continuing to do this. So they're getting worse, but I think the opposition is getting better. And I don't know yet how this story turns out.
Do you think, last question I'd ask you, is it a left versus right issue or a systemic issue? What I mean by this, a lot of people on the left would say, if Trump is in power, it's a bit harder to say this now with Robert Kennedy and Elon by his side. But the argument is still being made that if Trump is the next president, we'll just see the same thing but targeting the left instead of the right. We'll still see censorship. We'll still see abuse of power. We'll still see mainstream media is already leaning left, but maybe more support to right-leaning mainstream media platforms. Do you think it is a left versus right issue, or do you think it's a systemic issue that both parties could abuse?
People keep telling me that if Trump gets reelected, the left is going to be worse than ever, that there's going to be unprecedented violence and anarchy and reaction. In this weird way, my gut is not telling me that. I almost feel like if Trump wins the election, the left is going to have some kind of reckoning with themselves and say, okay, look, we charged this guy with 90-some felonies. We convicted him so far on 30-some. We've come at him with every accusation, every weapon that we could possibly come after. We have relentlessly messaged to our audience that he's a racist, a bigot, Hitler, and America still elected him. Is it us? What are we doing? At some point, they're going to have to look in the mirror and say, what the hell is going on? If he wins, look, it was the fact that he won in 2016 that woke me up. I was a diehard liberal.
Yeah, I remember.
I voted for Hillary. I voted for Obama. I was freaking out. But I think more and more people are going to have that awakening if he gets elected a second time. And I think it actually could begin maybe the final chain reaction to stop the left's extremist behavior.
Yeah. Well, Brandon, really appreciate you coming on, man. Can't wait for your speech. And we'll see you again on X.
It's good to see you in person.
See you, bro.
Thank you.